Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. I knew something was wrong the moment Claire stopped laughing at my jokes. Not just the polite kind of laugh people give when they're tired, but the hollow, distracted one that doesn't reach the eyes. The kind that hides secrets. We've been married 7 years. 7 years of morning coffees, late-night takeouts, and pretending that routine was the same as love. But lately, she'd become someone else, glued to her phone, smiling at texts she'd never show me, dressing up for work dinners that somehow didn't include anyone from her company. One night, I came home early from the office. The house was dark except for the soft blue glow from her phone in the kitchen. She was leaning against the counter, whispering into the screen like every word might set her on fire. When she heard my footsteps, she jumped. The phone hit the counter with a loud thud. "Ryan, you scared me," she said too quickly, forcing a laugh. I stepped closer, eyes on her shaking hands. "Did I?" She grabbed her wine glass. "I was just talking to, Lena, from the office. You remember her, right?" I did remember, because Lena had quit last year. That was the night I stopped pretending. For weeks, I watched quietly. The perfume that wasn't hers. The receipts that weren't for me. The late-night meetings that somehow ended with her coming home after midnight. Her lipstick smudged and her excuses perfect. Claire was smart, but she underestimated me. And maybe that was her biggest mistake. See, I built my marketing firm from nothing. 20-hour days, sleeping in the office, chasing clients who wouldn't return calls. I learned to read people fast, to smell lies before they were spoken. And Claire, she'd been lying for months. The first real confirmation came when her phone buzzed during dinner. The message preview glowed briefly on the table before she snatched it away. Same room as last time, winky face. She laughed awkwardly when she saw my expression. "Oh, it's just an inside joke with the girls." I didn't say a word. I just nodded, excused myself, and went to the garage. That's where I called Marcus, my old friend turned private investigator. He owed me a favor, and he was good at what he did. "Ryan," he said over the phone, "if she's up to something, I'll find out. You sure you're ready to see it?" I didn't hesitate. I've already seen enough. I just want proof. And in less than a week, he delivered. Photos, dates, hotel names. A man, Jason Laird, smiling beside my wife in places she claimed were team-building retreats. I didn't rage. I didn't break things. I just sat there, staring at the evidence in silence, my heart numb and cold. That night, when Claire came home smelling like his cologne, I greeted her with a kiss. I told her dinner was ready. I asked how her day went. I watched her lie through her smile, and in that moment, I realized something powerful. If she could play me so effortlessly, I could play her better. For weeks, I became the husband she thought I'd stopped being. Thoughtful, generous, predictable. I made sure she believed she'd gotten away with everything. Meanwhile, my lawyer and accountant worked quietly behind closed doors, shifting every asset, rewriting every clause, moving every share. When the day finally came, she was radiant, her bag packed, her tone cheerful. "Just a short trip with the girls," she said, flashing that familiar grin that used to make my chest tighten. I smiled back. "You deserve it, Claire. Go have fun." She kissed my cheek and left. 10 minutes later, I sent a message that would change her life. "Take your time." My accountant's adjusting the numbers anyway. The reaction was almost immediate. My phone lit up, first with a text, then another, then a call. By the fifth one, I answered. "Ryan," she gasped, panic cracking her voice. "What did you mean by that? What numbers?" I let a silence hang before answering softly. "Don't worry about it. Just focus on your trip. I'll handle the rest." And as the line went dead, I sat back in my chair, staring at the glowing screen. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Because she had taken everything for granted. My trust, my time, my love. And now, she was about to lose the only thing she'd never expected. Control. When she called again, I didn't answer. I wanted her to feel it. The silence, the uncertainty, the slow burn of realization that the man she'd been lying to wasn't blind anymore. By the fourth missed call, I could already imagine her pacing inside that fancy hotel room, staring at her phone, whispering to the man she'd risked everything for. Jason Laird, the smooth-talking consultant with perfect hair, perfect suits, and a hollow smile that fooled her into thinking he was something more than a thrill. I leaned back in my office chair and stared at the city lights flickering through the window. The storm had started outside, the wind whistling against the glass, but inside my chest, it was quiet, too quiet. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just hurt, it rearranges who you are. Claire and I weren't always like this. When we met, she was 25, ambitious, full of ideas, and fearless about chasing them. I admired that. She said I grounded her, made her feel safe. Back then, safety was something she claimed she needed. But somewhere between my long nights at work and her endless need for excitement, safety turned into boredom. She wanted fireworks. I gave her foundation. And Jason, he became her explosion. Marcus had dug deep. Jason wasn't some stranger. He was her company's regional director, a man known for his mentorship style that conveniently blurred lines. Married once, divorced twice, and broke until a few months ago, right around the time Claire started transferring money between accounts. That was the moment I realized her affair wasn't just emotional. It was financial. So, I gave her a choice without her even realizing it. Over the next 2 weeks, I restructured everything. Our joint account, our home equity, even the business investment she'd signed on to. On paper, it looked like she owned everything. In reality, she owned the debt. When my accountant, Gerald, called to confirm the final numbers, I said just one thing: make sure she sees her name on every liability before I pull mine. He hesitated. You sure you want to go this far, Ryan? I looked at the photo of Claire on my desk, the one from our first anniversary, before everything soured. Yeah, I'm sure. Now, as I sat there with her calls still flashing across the screen, I couldn't help but wonder what story she was telling Jason. Probably the same one she told me. How misunderstood she was, how her husband didn't pay attention anymore, how she deserved better. I didn't hate her. Not yet. What I felt was worse: detachment. Like the part of me that loved her had already walked out the door before she did. Finally, my phone buzzed again. Another call, but this time from a different number. Jason's. I let it ring twice before answering. Ryan, a voice said, sharp and defensive. It's Jason Laird. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding between you and Claire. I laughed quietly. Oh, there's no misunderstanding, Jason. I understand everything perfectly now. He hesitated. Look, I don't want things to escalate. She's upset. You should talk to her. I did. I interrupted calmly. Just not the way she expected. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, standing up and looking out the window, she's free to do whatever she wants now. She just can't do it with my money, my name, or my home. He tried to speak, but I hung up before he could finish. Outside, the rain began to pour harder, streaking down the glass like the world was washing itself clean. By the time I got home, the house felt different. Lighter somehow. Empty, but not lonely. I made coffee, sat in the kitchen, and listened to the quiet. Every corner of that house had once been filled with her laughter, her perfume, her chaos. Now all that was left was peace. A few hours later, the first text came through. Ryan, please call me. I don't understand what's going on. Then another. Are you serious about this accountant thing? What do you mean you're pulling out? And then, my favorite one. If this is about Jason, I can explain. I didn't reply. The truth was, I didn't need her explanations anymore. I'd spent too long being the husband who fixed everything. Now, it was her turn to learn what breaking felt like. The next day, I called Gerald again. Has she checked the accounts yet? An hour ago, he said. And, well, judging from the panic emails, she's realizing what you did. Good. He hesitated again. Ryan, you're calm about this. Most men would be losing it right now. I already did, I said quietly. Months ago. Now I'm just finishing what she started. Later that evening, while I was closing the office, a final message came through. I'm coming home. Please, let's talk. But she wasn't coming home to the same house. Not anymore. The locks were changed. The bank accounts were separate. The car title was transferred. Everything she'd once used as her safety net was gone. When the garage door opened that night, she wouldn't find me waiting with an argument or an apology. She'd find her own suitcase, the one she'd packed so eagerly that morning, neatly waiting on the porch, next to a manila envelope containing the divorce papers and a polite note. You always said you wanted freedom, Claire. Now you have it. I didn't hate her, but I wasn't going to save her either. Because sometimes the kindest revenge isn't rage, it's indifference. When she pulled into the driveway that night, headlights cutting through the rain, I was sitting in the living room with the lights off. I didn't need to see her face to know what it looked like. Fear mixed with disbelief. The same expression I once had when I first realized she'd been lying to me. The sound of the car door slamming echoed across the street. Then came the hurried footsteps on the porch. A pause. The thud of her suitcase hitting the door when she realized it was locked. Ryan. Her voice trembled through the wood. Ryan, open the door, please. I didn't move. After a minute, she started pounding harder. You can't be serious. What is all this? The locks? The accounts? I saw the paperwork. What did you do? Her words cracked under pressure. I waited until the pounding stopped before I finally spoke, my voice steady but quiet enough that she had to listen carefully. I did what you told me to do, Claire. What? She asked, confused. You told me to stop waiting up for you. I said. So I stopped. There was silence. Then I heard her sit down on the porch, sobbing softly against the door. For a moment, it almost broke me, the sound of her crying. The same woman I once held through every heartbreak, now on the other side of a locked door, realizing she'd created the distance herself. But then I remembered those nights I stayed up waiting, calling, worrying, while she was in another man's arms. My pity faded like smoke. I stood, walked to the door, and opened it just enough to look her in the eyes. Rain had ruined her makeup. Her mascara streaked like dark rivers down her face. Her once perfect hair clung to her cheeks. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Ryan, please, she whispered. Let's talk inside. It's freezing out here. Freezing feels honest, I said coldly. It's the first honest thing between us in months. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You don't understand. It wasn't what you think. Oh, I think it was exactly what I saw, I said, nodding toward her suitcase. And Marcus's camera doesn't lie. Her mouth fell open. You hired someone? I had to, I replied, because every time I asked you a question, I got a story, and I needed the truth. Her breath hitched. It wasn't supposed to go this far, Ryan. I made a mistake. I cut her off. No, you made a choice. Mistakes happen once. Choices get repeated. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The rain pattered against the porch roof, steady and merciless. I studied her face, looking for the woman I fell in love with. The one who used to wake me up at midnight just to dance in the kitchen, barefoot, laughing over burnt pancakes. But she wasn't there anymore. All that was left was a stranger wearing her face. I loved you, I said quietly. You know that, right? Her eyes filled again. I still love you, Ryan. I just lost myself. No, I said, shaking my head. You didn't lose yourself. You sold yourself. For attention, for flattery, for someone who made you feel seen. But you forgot. I was always here. You just stopped looking. She tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. Please don't do this, she whispered. I'll fix everything. I'll end it with Jason. I swear. I laughed softly, but there was no humor left in it. Jason's already gone, Claire. Her brows furrowed. What do you mean? He left his company today. His wife found out about you. Turns out he's not as single as he said. Her face drained of color. His wife. Yeah, I said. And he took all your messages, your transfers, and your little private emails to her as proof of your partnership. So if you're wondering why your company suddenly froze your account access, you can thank him. Her knees buckled, and she sat down on the step, trembling. Oh my God, no. I crouched down in front of her, my tone even. You destroyed us for a man who didn't even stay to clean up after himself. But don't worry, I'm not him. I won't ruin you publicly. You can keep your dignity. You'll just have to rebuild without me. She looked up at me desperately. Please, Ryan. I can't do this alone. I met her gaze, unflinching. You already were alone when you started lying. She started crying again, quieter this time, broken, defeated. For a brief second, a part of me wanted to comfort her. But then I remembered how she'd laughed on the phone with Jason while telling me she was working late. How I'd sat at our dinner table alone, reheating food she never came home to eat. That was the night something in me had died. Now, I was just burying what was left. Take the papers, I said, sliding the envelope toward her. Sign them. You'll keep the car. I'll take the house. Everything else, we split as the law says. I'm done fighting. Her voice cracked as she asked, and what happens now? I straightened up. Now, you find out what it's like to start from zero. Like I did. Except I built something with love. You'll have to build something with guilt. I closed the door before she could say another word. Through the glass, I saw her staring at the note I'd taped to her suitcase. The one that said, "Freedom always comes with a price." Hours later, I stood by the window, watching her car pull away. The taillights disappeared into the fog, leaving behind only silence. It wasn't victory I felt, not triumph, just closure. Because revenge, I realized, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, soft and steady, while you finally breathe again. And as dawn began to creep over the wet pavement outside, I whispered to myself, you can't lose what was never yours to keep. For the first time in years, I meant it. The morning after she left, the house felt impossibly still. No footsteps on the hardwood, no sound of the shower running, no scent of her perfume drifting down the hallway. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of the walls settling in. It was strange, peaceful, but almost too quiet. For years, I thought love was measured by what we endured for each other. How many fights we overcame, how many times we forgave. But standing there in that silence, I realized something I never had before. Love doesn't survive on endurance. It survives on respect. And once that's gone, the rest is just habit. I made coffee and stepped onto the porch. The rain had stopped, leaving the world smelling like wet earth and endings. Across the street, a neighbor waved as he loaded his truck. I nodded back, the faintest smile crossing my face. To him, it was just another Saturday morning. But for me, it was a rebirth. My phone buzzed on the table beside me. Another message from Claire. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll remember the good parts too. I stared at the text for a long moment. She was right. There were good parts. The first years, the laughter, the small moments that made life feel full. But the pain had overwritten them. Some things can't be restored, no matter how sincere the apology sounds. I typed back slowly. I remember, but I also remember what came after. Take care of yourself, Claire. Then I set the phone down and let the message sit unread on her end. Unfinished, final, and merciful. Over the next few weeks, life began to take shape again. I worked longer hours, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My focus returned, sharper than ever. Clients noticed. Deals closed. For the first time in years, I wasn't distracted by something falling apart at home. I saw Marcus a month later at a small bar near the river. He raised his glass when I walked in. So, he said, grinning faintly, how's freedom treating you? Better than I expected, I replied. He chuckled. You didn't go scorched earth. That's rare. Most guys in your shoes would have burned everything down. I took a sip of my drink, thinking, she already burned it down. I just didn't stay in the ashes. He nodded, quiet for a moment. You're a better man than most, Ryan. No, I said. Just a man who finally stopped mistaking pain for love. After that night, I started taking walks in the evenings again. The same route Claire and I used to take when things were still good. Except now, the quiet didn't sting, it grounded me. I began to notice small things again. The way the sunset hit the houses at the end of the street. The smell of freshly cut grass. The sound of wind chimes from the porch next door. Freedom didn't come with fireworks. It came with stillness. A few months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name written in her handwriting. Inside was a short note. I signed the papers. I've moved to another city. Thank you for letting me walk away quietly. You didn't have to, but you did. There was no bitterness in her words, just resignation, maybe even gratitude. I folded the letter, tucked it in a drawer, and closed it for good. Some chapters don't need revisiting. They just need closure. That night, as I turned off the lights and locked the door, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. For the first time in a long time, I saw a man who wasn't broken or angry, just free. People say revenge is about making the other person hurt. But real revenge? It's about healing yourself so completely that their absence becomes irrelevant. And as I stood there in that quiet house, with peace finally settling in where chaos used to live, I whispered the last thing I'd ever say to her memory. Thank you for leaving. It taught me how to stay. Then I turned off the light and walked into a life that was finally mine again.